foremost, I would like to thank Mr. Prashant Viswal, Mr. Rashmi Ranjan Sahu, Mr. Saurav Ranjan Sahu, and I would extend my sincere gratitude to the whole team of Startup Odisha, Government of Odisha. I would like to thank Mr. Vishnu Nagraj, the founder of Carve Startup Labs, for taking up this great initiative along with the whole team of CSL. Now it's time to introduce you all to our mentor for today's webinar session. It's an absolute honor for me to introduce Mr. Yagnesh Sanghrajka. He is currently the founder and CFO of 100x.vc, India's first venture capital fund, which uses iSAFE notes to fund startups. He has worked as India's operating partner for Bessemer Venture Partners, a top-ranked US-based global VC firm. He has also been part of due diligence and valuation exercises, both from acquirer and target companies' perspective, and hence possesses expert knowledge in this area. We welcome you, sir, for today's webinar session, and I would request you, sir, to take over the further proceedings of the session and enlighten our attendees with your knowledge and speak on the topic, how to raise your first investment. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Manisha. Well, I'm gonna thanks for that kind introduction. Let me just put my screen ready. I'm just gonna present for about 35 to 40 minutes, and then we will kind of leave the floor open for questions in the next 20 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
That's absolutely.
All right. So let me just jump in. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir. You can see.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining in and spending your precious time. Always all respect to founders, in starting their entrepreneurial journey. And let me see if I can help you guys with this in our session, with whatever we've learned over the past few years of our investing time. So thanks, Startup Odisha and Carve Startup Labs for giving me this opportunity. I generally, when we talk to founders, I always like to kind of start with this slide, which is in front of you. Just interesting journey about founders having to, when they roll off their entrepreneurial journey, they get this whole big idea in their mind, and then they start off with the journey, start planning things. Remember, guys, this is a lonely journey, so prefer kind of founders who can find like-minded people, get co-founders at this stage, get them so that they can brainstorm solutions, discuss internally, try to arrive at the best solution, and more than one hands is always welcome. So yeah, they find a co-founder, and then when they start out their journey, they go to their family, friends, or dip into their savings to kind of kick off the journey, and that's where all the families and friends kind of come in, right? So that's the stage where you have identified a few key staff people, employees, team members to join you, convinced them of your idea, and also gotten a few family friends to kind of buy into your idea so that they can give you some funds to start the business, right? That's how most of the journeys begin. And once you reach a particular stage, there is a time where you go in for a seed round, which is typically some kind of a valuation of about $1 million or so, or 2 million, or whatever is the case may be. This is just indicative, guys, so please don't be hung up on the numbers given here. But yeah, a seed round from a slightly more professional investor, maybe a VC fund or a seed stage fund like 100x VC is, and any other seed fund, get that amount for kind of reaching your next milestone, and then go on and raise a pre-series A or a series A from a much more professional kind of set of investors, VCs, to kind of get you that bigger checks, and then kind of build that journey, keep doing series B, C, D, and then eventually an IPO. So really, if you really see it's so very nicely said that 100% of nothing is a lot less than 17% of a big company. So while in the journey, you keep diluting, right? For people who join the journey, the people who keep investing in your business, you keep giving them some stakes because otherwise, how are you going to attract investments? But this is how it true happens. And even though at an IPO stage, this is we're talking about nothing less than 7 to 10 years, or even more in some cases, by the time your company actually lists, right? So that's the big dream that the entrepreneurs follow. And even if you own 17% of $1 billion or a $2 billion organization, imagine what you can do with that outcome. So that's this. When you see this journey also across in even in India nowadays, India has now almost about 25 to 30 odd unicorns, and by that I mean more than $1 billion valuation companies, right? So that's essentially the whole journey. So you understand the journey well and then begin, right? Um, so let me tell you the flow of the presentation, guys. I'm going to quickly kind of run through these slides, and then we will take questions at the end. But I'm hoping that most of the questions I would be able to take up even in my slides as well. So yeah, we'll start with why startups fail, some tips, the journey, how it begins, what are the stages, what's the life cycle of a startup, uh, pitch decks, what's the do's and don'ts, and then again, myths around valuations. How do you value startups? Common questions that people, generally wonder about. Um, Term sheets, pre and post money valuation kind of stuff. When you are talking to a serious investor, institutional investor, what are some of the important things you need to remember? And then 2 minutes about iSAFE on how we invest in startups. So I guess that's pretty much is what I'm going to take up. Uh, so yeah, I mean, why certain startups don't get funded? Right? You always keep wondering about why these guys are so hard, working so hard, getting a brilliant idea, still why aren't they getting funded? So this is some of the reasons. Companies which cannot grow fast, they may be a good business, it can be a good lifestyle business as we call it, but really has no potential to grow fast. It can grow, but it cannot grow fast and cannot absorb capital. So you're running a brilliant business on your own, making good money, but if you can't absorb my capital as an investor and grow at fast speed, you are not multiplying money for me, right? And that's why you don't become interesting. You're interesting, you good business as an example, but I can't invest in you. So there are good businesses, and then there are investable businesses. So the focus here is on becoming investable business, right? That's what is important. Typically, asset heavy businesses don't attract VC funding, and this is why, because the more capital goes in, your efficiency of returning the investment, return on investment, which is in our terms called ROI, becomes much more difficult to prove to an investor. And that's why you see asset light models becoming very popular. Investing in technology, innovation, people, marketing, sales, and development is typically what startups invest into, and that's what kind of takes them ahead. Lack of focus, we see so many pitches, probably hundreds and hundreds every week or a month. Founders typically, we've seen try to explain their product. They are so much in awe of their product or so much infatuated with their product that they start explaining what it is about. But they forget what really the problem is that they're solving, and if it's really a problem. So investors want to know that you really have a problem statement, right? And it's really a pain point, which is why the solution of yours, if it's right, will actually become very very big. So please remember to articulate the problem statement well. Before that, don't explain your solution, because then the investor is really not into you. But of course, we've seen single founder companies being successful, but again, complementary skill sets are always welcome. And we basically feel a team co-founder always helps. Uh, Basic unit economics, it's very important. We've seen pitch decks without unit economics. You're dealing into some product or goods. There is some margin into it, and we would like to know what it is. It's no secret, don't feel it's, something, some secret sauce that somebody will take it away. Sharing unit economics doesn't really matter. It only helps you get more attention with your investment. Capital structure, I already told you how the journey begins, and we'll talk more about it. But yeah, understand the capital structure. Don't dilute too fast, too early in the life cycle, so that that 17% magic number we said shouldn't really go down to 3-4% by the time it's listed, or by the time you reach a very big stage of funding. So there is there's too little less left for you. So dilution is a very important point, which often startups don't think about when they start off their journey. But it's very good to kind of just keep that in mind. Again, a lot of advice available, most of them free, but really it's right advice or not is difficult to kind of. And entrepreneurs are a vulnerable lot sometimes, so be careful of the advice that you take from people. Okay, so what is somebody who is decides what is right and then just kind of follows it through, till the end. And that's what is the journey of the entrepreneur. So that's what happens. Uh, what's the reason for your company? Start talking about that solution, elevator pitch. The elevator pitch normally is like a 3-4 minute. Keep that always ready for somebody who is interested in talking to you and doesn't really have that more than 5 minutes. So keep that elevator pitch ready so that you can articulate your stuff pretty fast and make him interested. The market opportunity, the positioning, segmentation. Why do people want this product more than any other product in the market? There always will be other products. So what's your differentiation? Where are you coming from? It should already sell by itself. It should have virality, right? If your solution is so good, it should start becoming popular. It should become viral. And that's where the whole success is. So virality can even happen at small scale. So, it's not about being, used by crores and crores of users. Even if there's virality seen in a particular geo, that's good enough for the investor to kind of have faith. It's like, again, a lot of these questions come in, so I thought I'll bake it in. Founders keep asking about, funding ke baad, can I get some salary? I've been putting in my money. These things are red flags for investors. So if you're not really in that journey, that difficult path, you will have to wait out for quite some time till you. I mean, Series A, pre-Series A is the stage where you could think about taking salaries. Till then, it's a big no, and so that's what needs. So think about all these things when you start out. Yeah, I mean, some of the things that what's a good time? Is it really a good time? Why is there some development, some technology has come in which kind of has, propelled your solution into focus, those kind of things. And then again, get your team done, that kind of stuff. Also importantly, why hasn't really somebody thought about what you've been doing? And so you have to have a very strong reason about why nobody was working on it and why it will now become the next big thing or disrupting in a sense. um, yeah, again, why would you become better than established guys who can easily build this? Somebody has money, so why will not somebody build it? Those answers have to be ready. So, it all comes down to basically these, 3, 4, 5 things for the investor. At 100x VC, we look at founding team. Most important of all the five is the founding team. We want to be very, very comfortable around, because that's something that is the only thing that we are getting in turn of what we're investing. Nothing else. There is no security. There's nothing. It's just piece of paper what you get when you invest. So you actually are getting just the founding team, and that's your kind of security. So the founding team needs to be excellent, above par. The opportunity has to be there, because no matter how good the founding team is, if there's no opportunity and they're trying to run after a very small piece of the pie, which is not going to grow or maybe degrow or shrink, doesn't make sense, right? So the market opportunity needs to be big. A business model has to be such that it makes money. After all, it's a private enterprise. You are in it to kind of make profits, make cash, grow the business. So the business model needs to be suited. Unit economics needs to be good. Unfair advantage is obviously against your competition, peers. What's your secret sauce, kind of stuff. And then again, investors, we'll need to be convinced about a high return, minimum 20x returns. That if I invest 1 lakh rupees, I should be able to take home at least 25, 50 lakhs, a crore. Unless that happens, you will find it difficult to get investment from professional investors. So you might get some stray investments from angel investors, who are not trained to think like investors, institutional. But then, this is most important. This money is smart money which comes to you, right? The investor money, the institutional investor money. So think about that. Yeah. Tips while meeting investors, simple, try not to, in your pitches, don't try to get everything closed in the first meeting. Nothing happens in the first meeting. When you get an opportunity, just make so much effort that will get you to the next meeting. Focus on key points. Don't elaborate everything. Don't try to expect anything. Expectations are important here. If you're getting a second meeting or a second call, you've kind of actually won that meeting. So think about that. Don't expect an answer of a yes or a no from an investor right after your first call and say, okay, how are you? Like, do you really like it? Will you invest? That's not how professional investors behave. So it'll take at least 6, 7 meetings, calls for you to kind of, close it down and say, okay, fine. Because, in one call, you can only understand so much. There's limitation to absorbing information, attention span, all of that. So take it one by one. Investors are looking at, compelling founders who have a believable dream and a whole, thing of making it reality. So they take time to, get that comfort around startups. So this basically is the journey. I mean, have enough conviction in your idea. You're going to risk your next 1, 2, 3 years seriously, full time. And if you're not full time, please don't start anything. So if you start something, make it full time, jump in it, and then only ask for external investment. Uh, because your skin in the game has to be there for the investor to even look at an investment. Do some thorough research. This is where most startups lack, and I cannot emphasize enough on the need to do a lot of research. Uh, don't come back and tell us ours is the only solution in the whole world. Nobody ever thought about it. 99 times out of 100, mostly somebody would have. So unless you find out who's grown well, who's really failed, and why, that research is going to not take you anywhere. Uh, Raise initial funds, as I discussed, who have faith in you. Get the right team, get the right co-founders on the bus, then taking it anywhere becomes easier. Get your differentiator right, get your first few customers, your pilots, your MVP. We'll talk about the life stages in a bit. Preparing pitch decks, come to that in a bit. So this is the journey, and study funding in this space. Try to learn who all guys got funded, why they got funded, who are the guys investing in the sector. Very important. These are all part of research study. Make them right. Refer to them in your decks, saying, "Okay, fine. I know what's happening in this space. I know who's getting what funded." Important. Strategize investor outreach. Just like you do for your potential customers. People often, I find, aggressive founders going after business. But they don't really go as much after investors, even though sometimes they have an opportunity and they just feel results will come soon. Neither happens fast. Keep trying and trying until you succeed at both. Because and keep doing course correction. And most important, celebrate each win. Big or small. So coming to the life cycle stages, that's basically typically what most of you might have seen. Prototypes, which really is like customer discovery. MVP, which is the minimum viable product or service, used for validation, not discovery. Seed stage funding is somewhere after the MVP stage. So this is where the seed stage funding has to happen or should be looked after. And then post that, you really find your product market fit. Some people really think they've found the product market fit when they really are at an MVP stage. So very important to differentiate, and only then probably you will be successful in your market fit discovery, customer creation, growth. And then of course with funds, you can always grow, scale your business. So like the prototype, get your prototype ready, develop the hypothesis, gain invaluable feedback from a few close and near and dear ones. See where the prototype is going. it's often called vanity MVP. It actually just kind of confirms that a problem exists. This is what basically a prototype is. An MVP is, basically not something that, people generally misread into MVP, saying creating an MVP or launching an MVP. You don't do that. Market tells you, whether you really reached your MVP. So it's a stage of product development, uh, basically in the whole lean startup methodology. In contrast to an MVP, an prototype, an MVP needs to be a viable product and services. It has to be viable. I need to see a value in it as a customer. Only then it becomes an MVP. So remember this. Product market fit, kind of means in a good market. This is where you really you will get that eureka moment. When you get that product market fit, people will start buying your products more and more. There'll be more demand than supply that you can provide. That's when you really think you've reached that market fit. Till then, no. Till then, keep working hard on the MVP, do pilots, do pivots, do whatever you can to get this at this stage. And this is where uh, almost 60-70% of the guys don't really reach. So this is important. Yeah, interesting slide here. The 6 P's. You basically start with planning, create positions, and then fill up those positions with people. Uh, do this stepwise because this is very important. Processes, make processes so that things run efficiently with less people. More is achieved with less. This is what exactly we are talking, right? In COVID times, lockdown times, how do you really manage? If you had good processes, you will find that even few people can manage the entire business well. And if you've done that, then you wouldn't be suffering like others are. So processes are very, very important. Without performance metrics, nothing is possible. You don't know where you're going. You just don't drive up a blind alley and keep going full speed. There's bound to be accident. So performance metrics is very important, and obviously passion, which kind of drives the core team. So very important thing. Yeah. So coming to pitching, there's no perfect pitch. The perfect pitch is something that actually gets your first investment. That's the perfect pitch. So if you're really thinking, what's the best pitch I could make, you will never get the answer. So it's very important that you focus on a few things, which I'll now tell you. These are the kind of, I feel they are typically the main slides that you should have. Obviously, the problem statement, solution, core team founders spend a lot on this slide, guys. Founding team. Remember that, you know, hypothesis, investment thesis that we had. Founders are the key things. So spend some time on that slide. Make it look beautiful. Put all your energy behind the look good feel. Don't put too much text in the slides. People hate so much of text in the slides. I have seen slides with a tremendous amount of text, and this kind of puts people off. So what you can convey with 10 words, don't try and say 30 words for it. Product and services, of course, market opportunity, Indian global, who's our competition, please always write, and don't just, draw the x-axis and the y-axis and put logos there. Say what the features are of your competition, say how they are better than your competition. What have you done so far? We would like to know your journey. Are there any use cases, user testimonials, demos that we will do anyway? Future roadmap, where are you going to go? How are you going to use the money? Most important, go to market strategy. How are you going to actually tap the market that you think is out there? So, revenue traction, if at all you have it. If you don't, that's fine. Really doesn't matter that much. But if you really had some revenue, you've been able to crack it, sell it to some guys, show it so that we know that somebody is willing to pay for it, right? Remember the MVP statement. Somebody has to willing to be pay for it, the viable solution. Of course, finance is a very important aspect. Always have some good numbers behind your statements, projections. How will you really believe that opportunity is big? Unless we know what it translates to in terms of revenue, how much funding is needed, where will you really spend it? Key finance understanding is very important. And, obviously, your website, your company name, contact details at the end of the slide. So these are things that are generally all there. I mean, this is no rocket science. You must have seen this, but very less time is spent on some of the slides by most people. So spend much time, make it as if you are investing money into someone. Then you'll actually understand why these are important. So let's come to like 15 minutes on how are you going to value, what are the rules of valuation, how you really think about these things. So no really past track record of startups, right? So how do you really value them? So basically, look for IP, you look for quality of founders. Startups don't. There's no science behind it, right? So how do you really reach? What kind of cash is required? And I'll come to that in a bit. There are lots of investments instruments that people use, and now we've added one more, iSAFE. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. Yeah. So when should we raise money? I've already said, right? So when you really feel you have a team behind everything that you want to achieve, and then have some friends and family who you've already got some money, you then kind of create a business plan, and then once your business plan is ready, only then go out and raise money. So that's very important. Um, you know, till the MVP is reached, as I said, the seed stage funding should not be attempted. That's the common mistake most people make. Yeah. Why do founders and investors need to negotiate about valuation? Because equity is always more expensive than debt, right? You must have seen this. Debt has a certain cost and it has to be repaid. Equity, because it doesn't have to be repaid, obviously expectations of investors much higher in case of equity than debt. Already importance of unit economics we have discussed. So average selling price, gross margins, contribution margins. This is very important. We need to know where you are bleeding. Are you bleeding at the contribution level? Are you bleeding at the EBITDA level? Where is it that you are bleeding? Where's your current burn rate coming from? So unit economics actually decides that. So again, it's not an art at the later stage, but yes, it's definitely some art at the early stage. Later, you have numbers to prove your performance, and that's when it slowly becomes a science. So it's like chemistry at early stage with founders, and then maths at later stage because you already have performance to show. So then maths take over, and you start putting projections, estimations, discounted cash flows, and stuff. But that all happens later. You need to understand the LP's mindset, limited partners or investors. Unless they see an exit, they will not invest. So just investment is not important. They need to see a meaningful exit. And everybody looks for solid promoters, and compare yourself with the best, and then see where you are. How do you really see valuation? There are a few methods. Established companies, profitable, which most startups are not. We talk about P multiple, which is profit to earnings. If they're not, they're loss making. You generally kind of look at sales, and if there's no sales, then at least you look at some users like B2C companies, e-commerce. They don't have revenue sometimes, but they definitely have users. They have number of subscribers, daily average time spent on the platform, things like that. Those metrics are important. Where there are more predictable cash flows, you use a DCF method, but that's much later for larger companies. But yeah, in absence of revenue, you try to show that IP to the investor, which kinds of creates an image of value in his mind for your company. So do that with whatever you have, the subscribers, users, target market, potential market opportunity, all of that. And by the way, startup investment is not about valuation, as most founders would believe. It's more the value only creates later. You actually start creating value with the investor's money. So don't forget that. It's not about valuation. It's about building a product which is 10 times better, grows 10 times faster than anything else. That's what startups are all about. Some SaaS companies kind of what kind of typically generates value in SaaS companies. Key factors. Upsell retention, CAC, um, gross retention, customer retention. Those are things that are important, which kind of drives B2B SaaS companies. Really gives them that annuity of income. That's what basically increases their valuation. There's a whole power law. It's like VCs typically make a lot of money in 5 to 6% of their deals. So if I'm investing in 100 companies, I'm expecting only 6 or 7. I'm actually expecting all of them to make money, but actually 5 or 6 of the deals actually give me more than 60-70% of my returns, and half of them lose money. So imagine what is the expectation from each startup, and they know that some of them will lose money, but that's not the hypothesis when they're investing. So they want each company to become a unicorn, and that's the whole approach out there. Uh, Network effect, kind of takes all. So you can see some examples of winner takes all kind of market. You already know about these players, and not a winner take all market where there's usually more number of players, like cloud kitchen businesses, lending businesses. uh, in winner takes all market, basically there's always going to be more demand, which is there, and basically the investors just grab a piece whenever you are able to get it. So not the same for winner, not a winner takes all business. So there are some of the returns that you can see how established investors have made out of winner takes all market, kind of thing, and you can see the multiples here of how many times money they really made. Okay, so having said that, you've crossed the journey. Maybe you've got an investor out there who is willing to invest in you, a seed stage guy. What are all these difficult terms that are going to come your way? So just a little bit of window in the next 5 minutes on that. So investing is like marriage, right? You get married, but before that comes the term sheet. It's like engagement. You're trying to showcase your best things. Due diligence happens, and only once somebody gets into deep dive into your business is when actually the investment happens. So term sheets are non-binding, and SHAs, which are shareholder agreements, are binding. So always remember that. So a little bit of numbers, pre-money and post-money. I'm sure most of you know it, but just for the sake of repetition, or some people who don't, uh, basically what you put in a company, you always value a company before you put in. Unlike in iSAFE, which I'll explain later, but in most companies which kind of value companies when they invest, most investors would put a pre-money valuation and then add that investment, which gives you a post-money valuation, and the percentage stake is arrived at a post money thing. So let's say if a 2.5 crore is invested at a 10 crore pre, you'll end up with a 20% kind of ownership, because 2.5 divided by 12.5 becomes your end ownership post investment. So this is typically how the pre money, post money kind of thing gets worked out. So we spoke about dilution earlier, and this is where actually it gets down to numbers. It's like initially you dilute in favor of an angel, then a Series A round guy comes in. How much more you get dilution? So what you see here basically is the founder equity, which keeps going down. And at Series B, you would have probably at less than 50%, but then by this time, your company is worth at least 300-400 crores. So that's basically where the journey is. So just breaking it down in terms of Excel sheet, so this is how you dilute. Like if you take 1 crore, you dilute 15% in favor of an angel. The next round, everyone gets diluted by 35%. Uh, this is how the split looks like post the cap table. And then the Series B happens when the check is of a larger amount, 65 crores. You dilute 27%. That's how the cap table will look like, and that's how your worth of the money. So founders would be worth at least 95 crores at a Series B with a 65 crore check and a post money of 236 crores. So this is typically how it works. Right? So understand the math. This is very important for techies who are there in the house. Please understand this very well, because that's important to know upfront. Then there is a standard term sheet. I'll quickly run through that. I'm sure Vishnu and the team are going to circulate the presentation to you guys later. So don't worry about all these things. These are things that you should know. Uh, Conversion terms, how the liquidation preference works. Investors will always have liquidation preference over the founders. So they may or may not step on the board of directors. They will make you create a kitty for ESOP for your key employees. There will be definitely a lock-in. So founder shares cannot be sold till there is investor there. Till he gets an exit, founders cannot sell. important caveat. And obviously, tag along rights. If founders find a buyer for their company, obviously they are obliged to include investors as well. Those are called tag along rights. As I said, liquidation preference, company gets sold, acquired in some way, some situations demand that. At that time, whatever money comes in typically goes to investor at the first place, and then whatever is left is actually goes to the promoter. Then there's down round protection where one round is happening at a particular valuation, the second round, presumably things don't really go well with the company. The valuation is happening at a lower round. The existing investors need to be given extra shares to bump up their stake to the previous level. So that's called down round protection. I'm trying to explain it in very simple English, but I'm hoping if there are any questions, later, happy to take it. Uh, there should not be any debt in the company. Ideally, if there is debt, it has to stay again, not being repaid out of the investors' funds. They can be repaid later once investor gets out or if he has sold out. Only then. There are information rights, inspection rights. Investors have access to every information in the company, books of accounts, figures, MIS statements, monthly updates and stuff. So, there are some drag alongs, like if founders are finding an exit, obviously, as I said, investor has to go. But if that doesn't happen after a while, investors, remember, are here to exit. They're not here to stay forever. So they will find a buyer if you are not, and then they will drag you. So forcibly, companies' control can go out if till a particular time, which is typically 5 to 4 years. If you're really not giving exit to investors through an IPO or anything, the investors may be free to kind of buy. This is a drag along right that investors have. And this is all about the investment vehicles, and I'll quickly touch upon iSAFE in the last 2 minutes, and then we can open the floor for questions. At 100x we basically use an instrument which is a convertible called iSAFE. It's called India Simple Agreement for Future Equity. This is the most convenient and the founder friendly instrument to kind of invest in startups. So basically, it's a convertible note, takes a form of CCPS, which is a commonly used instrument by investors in India as per company law provisions. It is neither debt nor equity uh, because there is no interest component, there is no dividend, there's hardly 0.001% dividend on that. But then it converts at a future date to equity. So currently, you are not issuing equity, you will be issuing preference shares in lieu of the investment, but then that equity will convert at a particular stage, which is the pricing round. Whenever the pricing round takes place, like what we discussed, that is when the iSAFE will convert. So currently it addresses the best thing in terms of the valuation, right? Early stage companies, as I already said, difficult to value them. So what an investor, like an iSAFE investor, will say is, fine, take my money, give me the stake later, but these are the terms on which we agree. So it kind of helps not getting into a debate on valuation. So what's the difference between standard CCPS and iSAFE? Just want to kind of highlight this a bit. Board seats are generally demanded by investors. Here, iSAFE doesn't require you to give a board seat. There is no SHA. There are no voting rights out here. iSAFE investors don't care about voting rights. They work with founders closely, mentor them, help them with their business. The idea is not to have a control over the company. The idea is to work in a consultative fashion with the company. In some cases, there are some consent rights required because we need to protect our investment. So there are some consent rights. You can't raise capital. You can't make major changes. You can't sell your company, obviously, without prior approval. So those things are there. But largely, this is a very 5-page kind of simple document, unlike a 50-page document that you have to sign in SHA. Most important of all, post-money valuation is not here. There is no need of discussing a post-money valuation. This is a clear winner in terms of the pros and cons of a standard term sheet. Yeah, and this is open source. This is available. You can copy some of these documents on our website. It's given there, and Again, big thanks to the Startup Odisha and Carve Startup Labs team. This is my email ID, and then whenever you are ready, please send your pitch decks to pitch@100x.vc. So I think that's all from me, guys, here, and I will kind of just go back to the meeting. Um,
Thank you, sir.
I'm open for questions if there are any.
Yes, sir. So I will moderate the questions to you. I'll read the questions on behalf of our attendees so you can address and answer them. I would request all our attendees to put your questions in the comment section so that I can address and ask a mentor. And also, we have dropped the feedback form. We would love to hear from you about the session. So kindly fill it. We have dropped it in the comment section. So yes, sir, I can read out the questions to you. You will answer them.
I hope the presentation was clear for everyone. Everyone was able to see the slides.
Yes, sir, it was clear. It was pretty clear.
Sure. Okay, so do you want me to read these questions, or are you going to read it out for me?
So I will read it. I will
Sure.
moderate it, the questions.
All right.
Okay, sir. So there's a question like one of our attendee has asked, Priya Prakash Swani. She has asked how to value the startup before seed funding.
Yeah, so basically, what I said was again, no rules as such. There is very little data available for valuing startups. You could look at similar startups in these kind of businesses, similar businesses, try to find a similar business and see what it was valued at. Typically, like for example, if we are investing also in seed stage kind of startups, our iSAFE is a very simple term. We invest 25 lakhs and bring our mentorship on board. The, ent- the entire 100x team kind of works behind you. And so we basically would like to get 7% at a future date. So our iSafe is termed as 7% with 25 lakhs. And that's our term, but because we bring in a lot of business value, we bring in a lot of investors, we will probably arrange at least 100 meetings of investors post our investment. So there's a value add component to it, but if not, it's just a pure financial investment. Uh, anything, startup don't have any range. So depending on what stage you are in, we would like to see what kind of stage. Is there any some proof of concept? Is it really proved? Is there an MVP there? If there's an MVP, it can be slightly better value. If it's a strong MVP, if it's a pilot done with a huge corporate or successfully done pilot, or even if it's a paid pilot, definitely adds up a few notches on the valuations.
Okay, sir. So there's another question. They want to know that we get seed fund from 100x.vc. If yes, then what's the procedures?
So basically, as I said in my last slide, you just need to basically apply at our email pitch@100x.vc, 100x.vc, and then wait for us to get back. If we find your pitch interesting, there will be a mail coming back to you with some Google form questions. You have to record a video pitch with answers to those questions. And then once you submit that, and if that gets shortlisted, we will call you. We will set up a call with the founding team, and then the process of evaluation takes place from there.
Okay, sir. So there's
And
another
typically,
question.
if we like the deal very much, and if everything goes well, we can actually close the investment in a flat 2 to 3 weeks time.
All right, sir. So, sir, there's another question by attendee. She wants to know how to evaluate a company before seed stage.
Yeah, I think the same question that you asked, the
Yeah.
first one, right? That I mean, it's difficult to value. You will have to see what stage it's at, how many customers are there, how many users have used the platform or the product, what's the contribution margin. All of these go in, inch by inch to kind of build your valuation. So founders will really have to explain what is it that they are wanting. Let's say if I want to invite 50 lakhs for a 10% stake, which means I'm kind of valuing my company at 5 crores. Why is it 5 crores? Why do I feel it is worth 5 crores, right? Do I have some proof of concept? Is my solution workable? Is there a large market? If I can prove all those things, then yes, I mean, so that's how typically all startup funding will take place at angel stage.
Okay, sir. So they want to know like, does 100x.vc invest purely on ideas?
No, so we don't invest only in ideas. A pure idea on a piece of paper or on a PPT really doesn't help unless there is use case. Unless you've worked something on the idea. Pure ideas, I could have a million ideas, right? I mean, we to be brutally honest, we're not too enamored with ideas. We want that idea has to be tested. It has to be proved that it is working. It has to be a viable solution for the customer. Somewhere in your geo, you should have used that. Some people would have used it, given you some output. There was some feedback. A couple of pivots would have happened. I mean, that's the stage that we would like to get in. A pure idea stage is too early. I mean, that's most likely for friends and family kind of stage of investment.
All right, sir. So there's another query like, how much minimum equity investors expect from a startup? They ask you.
So different again, depends on which type of investor you are talking to. So if you are a seed stage bootstrapped founder, you're looking at a friend or family, he might even kind of give you a small sum just to kind of start out and with no meaningful equity, just because he wants you to successfully take that idea ahead. So there's more compassion and feelings, emotional connect attached to that investment. So it really can't really be the benchmark, but slightly more evolved companies like us or any angel investor who invest in this stage will want to see a lot of traction, as I already said, and so typically early stage investors will want to take between 15 to 20% at the first stage when they invest whatever amount is needed for, let's say, next 12 to 18 months. So whatever cash that you need for 12 to 18 months, if it is validly proven, then you're looking at a 15 to 20% kind of dilution at the early stage kind of thing. That's what typically investors would expect.
All right, sir. So there's another question related like, how important or like it's relevant is the unit economics for food and beverage business, and what's the ideal scenario?
Yeah, so ultimately, food and beverage is again goods. We're talking about either some snacks or some healthy snacks or any beverage for that matter is again a good and not a service. So you need to have healthy contribution margins. And if it's a B2C business, you will sink in a lot of money in terms of reaching to the customer. So you have to make sure your contribution margins are way higher, your product and at scale. So let's say I build 10 units, it might be X contribution margin, but if I'm able to build 10,000 units, how does my contribution margin look like? It has to grow substantially well so that you can then able to kind of invest in going after customers and doing that. So that's how typically a unit economics study is done.
So there's another question like, what segments like salaries, rent, etc., should be mentioned in pitch deck? So that's the question.
Not required to be mentioned. What we need is what kind of projections or what kind of revenue will you achieve at seed stage. Revenues is more important. We'll figure out all the expenses. That's the lowest part of the discussion. But make sure, again, as I said, don't really put in so much of expenses which doesn't go into. So try to invest more in direct costs, get more investment into sales driven. So whatever gets you sale is a valid expense, variable cost expense, but fixed cost, debt cost, rent cost like these will have to be seen very carefully. Customer support kind of costs, which are very, very relevant for sales, are welcome. But try to think about debt fixed cost, which keep it at the lowest possible. So that's my advice.
Okay, sir. So there's a question related like finding genuine investors. So person are asking, how could we find prospective investors? Like, what are the platforms where we could find genuine investors?
So yeah, I mean, if you're looking again, you're bootstrapped, you're looking at a professional investor, you could look at 100x VC, you could look at others in the game also who are seed stage funds. And typically, if you are from an industry consumer, then there are specific consumer funds. You will have to really go through a various list. I mean, it's all available out in public domain. There are seed stage funds, there are early stage funds who write checks and all that. There are angel networks, by the way, who also like an Indian Angel Network or a Let's Venture. Those kind of platforms are there where a bunch of angel investors as a group have created a network platform, and you could approach these. And I'm sure there must be one or more than one in your city as well. So approach angel investors as well, angel networks, and anywhere where you could get a reference. So you know you can look around, people who are investing, people who have money are looking for bright ideas, reach out to them through people known to them. uh, Typically a cold call will be difficult to kind of get attention, so always go through, I mean, networks. There's clear application you have to make on the website, and that's how they invite applications. uh, your pitch deck, your hypothesis, investment has to be very strong. You will get selected, and they have a different process of evaluation. So that's what typically are the avenues for you to kind of look for investment.
All right, sir. So I will take last few questions. So here's another
Sure.
question. Um, what is the minimum percentage of dilution in seed stage with a MVP?
Yeah, I think I answered that already, Manisha. We typically at early stage, if it's an angel, I mean, let me just paint a scenario. I would look at a bootstrap company with some friends, family having invested, some mentor there working with the company long enough. But all of that, friends and family, mentor, equity shouldn't be more than 4 to 5%. Founders need to hold 90 to 95% to be able to reach out to a seed stage fund, because the minute seed stage guy walks in, anybody like us or anybody, though we don't take straight equity upfront, but there will be some who will, and at some stage you will have to part with some equity. So the lowest you keep it in the initial stages, the better it is. There is a concept of, again, some founders who come in, who some mentors who would like to contribute. It's advisable for founders to kind of give a vested equity. So give it over a period of time. No need to give upfront equity. You can give them as they contribute, because not everyone will be able to contribute initially. uh, Once your product reaches a particular stage, they'll be required to get customers. So as and when mentors kind of keep on helping with companies in future, they could keep on getting small stakes incrementally. So I think that helps both the parties. So try to kind of, this is just one of the thoughts that you could discuss with your mentors or investors.
Okay, sir. So the last question. If a company has a runway capital for next 12 months, should it raise fund from VCs?
Typically, I would extend. I mean, especially in these difficult times right now, lockdown having been extended and stuff, we don't know when normalcy will return. I would imagine reach out to a VC only if you have 18 months of runway. Secondly, the process of closing a VC investment is typically 4 to 5 months. So imagine the first call having been done to a VC, where you get on a call, explain your business. uh, it'll take you 4 or 5 months by the time the money is in the bank, the SHA being signed, due diligence, their investment committee looking. There's a whole lot of processes. It's not like 100x where we talk to you, do a couple of checks, understand your business, and take calls immediately, and your money can be in bank in 1 month itself. VC funds typically take larger time, more diligence, because they're working on fewer deals for the year. So typically, my advice is, unless you have 18 months of runway, and then you have 6 months of time period to survive, uh, talking to a VC will be ideal only if you have all that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for addressing all the questions. Like, I'm apologetic about the fact that we didn't take all the questions. In case you want to ask your questions, you can mail to our team, Carve Startup Labs, so we can help you connect with our mentor. And thank you all. So now, sir, I would request, we have Mr. Rashmi Ranjan Sahu, sir, Senior Mission Associate, Startup Odisha. So I would request, sir, to speak a few words on the session.
I can't hear you well. I think your network is slightly bad. So
Hello.
can you come again? Hey.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Yagnesh. Good afternoon. It was really nice to have you in this session. I'm Rashmi from Startup Odisha. Uh,
Yeah, hi.
your presentation was really wonderful and it was very informative as well. You explain a lot of things which is really needed by our startups, like starting startups or those who are into early stage, those who have already started some traction from the market. Some are already are taking some investment from other angels as well. So it is very informative for them and for us as well. So as you said, if you can circulate this presentation with us, so we will also spread across to the participants who have participated today.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure, I will do that. I will do that, sir. I'll share my presentation with you. And also, if there are any queries, you can direct it to me. I'm happy to kind of answer that.
sure, sure,
You know,
sure.
and uh,
Yeah, I met Shashank once in Delhi. Shashank runs
okay,
the,
all right,
yeah.
okay, fair enough.
So when
Yeah.
Vishnu told about you that we want to bring 100 XBC, I said, oh, great. So that,
No, happy to, we work with a lot of startup labs, we work with a lot of incubation centers, because we know that's where, founders are just about to kind of start on their journey. We're happy
yes,
to
yes.
handle most of them if we really are interested in investing. Then, happy to engage you guys offline, evaluate all your startups uh,
Yeah,
who
we
are
are
working
planning
with
for
you.
that. We are planning for that, and we are in fact we are planning for an investor pitch. We'll definitely try to reach out to you when we will shortlist few
Sure.
startups. And I must say there are some startups who are
Sure, happy to engage, and thanks for this opportunity. I hope people were benefited with this session. Um,
yeah, you very nicely explain some points like term sheets and what are the things that they should avoid when they are going to approach the VCs or investors, and why most of the startups they are not getting funded by the angels, how to prepare the pitch deck. In fact,
yeah, and sometimes most investors are not very candid about why they are refusing startups to fund, but we should know exactly what is the reason. So I just thought a candid feedback would be better for startups, so that they don't expect something more. And then I just was just thought of sharing those insights.
yeah, yeah, right. So many of the startups they are also asking, okay, how can we get funded and how to connect with the investors. So we also trying to prepare them how they can approach the right investors, and we are trying to connect with the angel investor networks in India, and we are also approaching few of the investors and get collaborated with them. By that, continuously we can work with the common goal and get some kind of support to this ecosystem by helping
Sure.
our own startups. So hopefully very soon we will get in touch again and try to find out some solution for our startups.
Sure. Now, all the best with your initiative. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and of nurturing these startups right from birth, and getting them to a stage where they're able to talk to investors. I think it's a great service to the nation. So I respect that, and very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So before we go to the last part of vote of thanks, I would request Mr. Vishnu Nagraj, founder of Carve Startup Labs, to speak a few words on the session.
Thanks, Manisha. First of all, I have to thank Yagnesh and Sanjay team. Within just our request, we accepted to help, and we know that we already worked with lots of startup from students or startup founders. Almost in CSL, we did 150 plus programs. Also, we connected 15,000 plus startup founders. We helped them to start from the ground level to scaling, investing, everything. So the biggest gap is how to raise the first investment. And to be frankly said, honestly, this particular session is helped a lot of startup. Even for us, also the entire CSL team, we learned a lot, because every startup first thing they will ask how to raise the first investment. What are the term sheet? What is SHA? I know lots of people got trapped without knowing this all stuff. So thanks a lot for spending your valuable time and explaining all these things. It's really gonna help lots of startups. So thanks to 100 VC as well as we are looking forward to work together, sir. So thanks for this accepting my request and doing the help. Hope everyone got benefited with your talk, and we need more. Looking forward to it.
Sure, sure. Happy to help, Vishnu. Thanks for reaching out. And I am typically we do this session for 2 hours, but I just tried to condense it to less than an hour. So I'm hoping it was worth everyone's time.
It's worth, it's really good.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you, Startup Odisha team and the Carve Startup team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishnu sir. Uh, Finally, I would like to thank Mr. Yagnesh Sanghrajka sir for your valuable knowledge and your time for sharing it with the attendees. It was a pleasure having you as our mentor for today's webinar session. I would like to thank Startup Odisha, Government of Odisha for this great initiative. I would like to thank Mr. Vishnu Nagraj, founder of Carve Startup Labs, along with the whole team of CSL for executing this webinar. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all our attendees for attending this webinar session. I hope you have a lot to take away from this session, and thanks for your patience. We have dropped the feedback form in the comment section, so we would love to hear it from you. Thank you for attending. Thank you, everyone. This is me, Manisha Mohanty, signing off.